Hello everyone, this is Mrs. Bibb. Today we're going to solve quadratics using the square root property and the zero product property. And this will be part one of probably two, maybe three videos that I'm going to be doing. Here are the definitions I'd like for you to write down. A quadratic equation. We've been working with quadratics, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. The root of equation just means the solution or an answer. There are several different synonyms to the word root, and that would be 0, root 0, x-intercept, solution, all of those things. Now remember, an x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis. So the root of an equation is where it crosses the x-axis. It's called a 0, a root, an x-intercept, or the solution. So the first three that we're going to be doing, we're going to go to desmos.com to graph. So if you'll pull that up on your calculator, DESMOS right there it is typed out. You'll click the red button that says Start Graphing, and then in the box that's labeled 1, you'll type X, then hit the A squared button, then minus 11x plus 24. And you do not have to enter the equal 0. You can enter the equal 0 if you want, but you don't have to. And you're going to look at that graph, and you're going to find where the graph crosses the x-axis. You don't have to draw this. I just want to draw it for you really quick. If you don't have a phone in front of you, or if your internet's not working very well, I want to show you that this graph, and you know how my graphs are. Here's my rough sketch. Ooh, very rough. Sorry about that. Okay, so as you look at this graph, it crosses the x-axis at 3, and this was intended to be 8. So my solutions are 3 and 8. I've seen them written like this. That's one way. I've seen them written like this. The x-intercepts are 3 and 8. I have seen them written as a solution set. That's also acceptable. So there's a way, and here's another way. This is not acceptable, though. I want to show you why is that not acceptable. Because that's an ordered pair where you say x is 3 and y is 8. So that is not acceptable. I've given you the 3 ways you can write your answer. So if you'll choose just one of those 3 ways, it doesn't matter which one, to write your answer. Now let's graph the second one. But I want you to notice, see how the 13's over here? Well, I should have said in the beginning that in order to solve by graphing, it has to equal 0. Probably not on Desmos. I could probably type that in, but I'm going to just go ahead and say it has to equal 0. So I'm going to move this 13 to the left. So I'm going to have 0 equals negative x squared minus 25. And then I'm going to type in negative x squared. Whoops, I didn't type my x. Hope you did. Okay, negative x squared minus 25. And for the negative, I just used the subtraction sign. Now notice you can't see anything there. You might have to zoom in, which just squeeze. I'm going to take away. I'm going to X out the number 1 graph. I didn't do that, but now I have it away. Okay, so now you can see, I squeezed it together. You can see that graph. It looks like this. This is going to be a very rough sketch. Looks like that. Does it touch or cross the x-axis? No, it doesn't. So that means there's no real solution to this problem. No real solution. There is a solution. We'll talk about that later on. But there's no real solution to this problem. Okay, the next one, I'm going to move the 5x and the 2, and we'll talk about later on why I chose to do that. But I'm making it equal 0. Okay, now I am going to type that in the calculator. 12x squared minus 5x minus 2. Oh, and I have mine zoomed in, so I've got to go back out because that's way too narrow. Oh, I can see better now. Now, one thing I love about Desmos, you can see as you look at this, that it does not cross exactly on any integer value. So if you just tap on the number, or tap on where it crosses the x-axis, it tells you. I see this ordered pair when I tap on the screen, negative 0.250. And then on the other side, I see 0.6670. Now, I want us to use our brains. We're intelligent. We're in high school. Negative 0.25 is negative 1/4. And 0.667 is 2/3. So those are my two solutions. Write them whatever way you want to. That's the way I usually like to write them. The order does not matter inside of there. But those are my two solutions. Okay, moving right along to number 4 through 6. I haven't mentioned over here on the side what I have typed out. At some point, you should write this down in your notes. You should write down everything that this is. These are the steps to solve. First thing that you want to do is check to see if b equals 0. Looking at my problem here, if I moved 400 to the other side, let me do that really quick. You don't have to. If I move 400 to the other side, that is a quadratic because I have a squared term. A equals 1, b equals 0, c equals negative 400. So b is 0 on this problem. So I can do what it says. Hold on, I will. I'm going to erase really quick. Okay, so it says if b equals 0, check to see if it does skip to number 5. So we can skip down to number 5. Okay, so we're down here at number 5. It says move the constant to the right by adding or subtracting. Now I want you to look. My constant, 400, is already on the right, so I don't have to do that step. What does it say next? Get the quadratic term alone by multiplying or dividing. Well, here's my quadratic term. Is it alone? Is there a variable here beside of it? Nope, so it's already alone. Well, this is a great problem because every bit of this was already met. Now it says take the square root of each side to solve for the variable. So I'm going to take the square root of each side. The square root of t squared is t. And then the square root of 400 is 20. I want to talk to you just for a second about that. Let me do one over here that we all know. What number can you square to get 9? And most students will tell me automatically, 3, Mrs. Bibb. I can square 3 to get 9. And then I'll say, is there any other number that you can square to get 9? And students will think for a little while, but hopefully, eventually it comes to mind that you could square negative 3 and also get 9. You can square positive 3 and negative 3. So every one of these problems, every one of these quadratic problems are going to have 2 answers. This exponent tells me I'm going to have 2 answers. And I just told you why we have 2 answers. You can square a positive to get a positive, and you can square a negative to get a positive. Let me erase that really quick, but hopefully you understand. Now I'm going to show you 2 ways that you can write that. And it's up to you. I don't mind either way, just as long as you understand the one way that I usually use. Okay, so you can square positive 20 to get 400, and you can square negative 20 to get 400. So you're welcome to write it like this. The way I write it, t equals positive or negative 20. Now I want you to look over here that I have written. Take the square root of each side. Number 7 says, don't forget the plus or minus. So if you don't want to use the plus or minus and put positive 20 and negative 20, that's fine. But don't forget you have 2 answers to these. Okay, now let's look at this next one. With this next one, think of this as just your squared term. Ignore what's inside the parentheses for right now. So I have a squared term, and I have a constant and another constant. Let's go up here and look at the steps. Check to see if b equals 0. Well, when you're talking about being equal to 0, that means that you have, let's look up here at number 1, you have an x in your answer, or excuse me, in your problem. You have a b value. Is there a b value down here? I have a squared term, a constant, and a constant. So hopefully you see the answer to that is no. I do not have a b value, so b is 0. Check to see if b equals 0. If it does, skip to number 5. Okay, so number 5 says move the constant to the right by adding or subtracting. Let me erase really quick. So I'm going to move this constant of negative 19 to the right. I'm going to add it because I want to make 0. The opposite of subtracting 19 is adding 19. I'm going to bring down my squared term, 2k plus 3. 81 plus 19 is 100. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Remember, when you take the square root, you get a positive and a negative. And then we're over here, take the square of each side to solve for the variable. So we're going to solve for the variable. I'm going to subtract 3. 2k is going to equal, when you subtract 3 and you have that plus or minus, put that minus 3 in front of the plus or minus. So negative 3 plus or minus 10. Then I am going to divide by 2. K is going to equal negative 3 plus or minus 10 divided by 2. Now, I need some space, so I'm going to erase and make me some space over here. I want to erase. So I'll go over here on the other side. I've got to figure out my 2 answers. So my 2 answers are going to be k equals negative 3 plus 10 divided by 2, and k equals negative 3 minus 10 divided by 2. So negative 3 plus 10 is 7 divided by 2. That's one of my solutions. And negative 3 minus 10 is negative 13 divided by 2. So those are my 2 solutions.